Welcome to Five Nights at Freddy's 2 Electric Boogaloo, the movie, the game, the video, Act 1, Scene 1. 1555 Fazbear. That's a little bit like having a number 1-800 McDonald's Donald's. I don't know. I'm glad we have a solid supply of microwaves in the corner.
Hello? Hello and welcome to your new summer job.
I think that's a new record. He said hello 4 times in a row.
I'm here to talk you through some of the things you can expect to see during your first week here and to help you get started down this new and exciting career path.
First and also last.
Anything you may have heard about the old location, you know. Some people still have a somewhat negative impression of the company. That old restaurant was kind of left to rot for quite a while, but I want to reassure you, Fazbear Entertainment is committed to family fun and above all, safety. They've spent a small fortune on these new animatronics. Facial recognition, advanced mobility, they even let them walk around during the day. Isn't that neat? But most importantly, they're all tied into some kind of criminal database so they can detect a predator a mile away. Heck, we should be paying them to guard you.
Good thing we're not criminals then,
no new
I hope.
systems without its kinks. You're only the second guard to work at that location. The first guy finished his week, but complained about conditions.
I want to know about that first guy.
Him over to the day shift.
That would be an interesting story.
Right? Mainly he expressed concern that certain characters seemed to move around at night and even attempted to get into his office. Now, from what we know, that should be impossible. That restaurant should be the safest place on Earth. So while our engineers don't really have an explanation for this, the working theory is that the robots were never given a proper night mode. So when it gets quiet, they think they're in the wrong room. So then they go try to find where the people are, and in this case, that's your office. So our temporary solution is this. There's a music box over by the prize counter, and it's rigged to be wound up remotely. So just every once in a while, switch over to the prize counter video feed and wind it up for
Those
a few
Chica
seconds.
and Cupcake toys are
It doesn't
adorable.
affect all of the animatronics, but it does affect one of them.
Rock, eat, party.
And as for the rest of them,
In the
we have
background.
an easier solution. You see, there may be a minor glitch in the system, something about the robot seeing you as an endoskeleton without his costume on and wanting to stuff you into a suit. So hey,
Just a minor
we've given
glitch.
you an empty Freddy Fazbear head.
No need to beta test that.
You can put it on any time and leave it on for as long as you want. Eventually, anything that wandered in will wander back out.
Presumably there's something like in the game's code where there was going to be a toxic meter for how long you could have on the mask before you suffocate, but I guess there wasn't really a reason to include that.
The building cannot, so don't worry about the place going dark. Well, I think that's it. You should be golden. Check the lights, put on the Freddy head if you need to. Keep the music box wound up. Piece of cake. Have a good night, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.
Piece of cake, but not a piece of the cupcake. So, this playthrough is not going to be the same as the one that I made for Five Nights at Freddy's 1. For a few different reasons. One is that the footage that you're seeing right now is not my first time playing the game, it was my second time beating it. I spent about 2 hours beating it on the night after Five Nights at Freddy's 3 came out, and I was excited to play Five Nights at Freddy's 3, but I had to finish this one first, so I went ahead and played it. And it didn't record properly because the first game is 720p widescreen, while this one is standard definition and it's 768 pixels tall, which means that the bottom of the screen was cut off because I was recording in 720p. So I spent another hour or so playing the game again, but I didn't bother commentating while doing it because I felt like I could only get all the words that I wanted to say out if I post-commentated everything, which is what I'm doing right now. So, in watching this, if you're expecting me to freak out from jump scares, that didn't really happen much anyways, so you're not missing much. But I have many things that I would like to say about this game. I think the number one thing that I want to establish with this Let's Play is watching these games, watching Five Nights at Freddy's 1 and 2, they might seem like very similar experiences. Because what you're getting on the watching end is, oh, there are animatronics trying to come into the room, and you have to shoo them away, and they jump scare you sometimes, and that's it. Same game as the first. But the impression that I got from actually playing Five Nights at Freddy's 1 and then 2 is that not only is it a different game, but it feels like almost a polar opposite experience from the first. And I was amazed at how different it was for me, but not necessarily in a good way. I kind of feel like this game was designed mostly for people who have played the first game already, and not really with new players in mind, because the concepts that are familiar from the first game it doesn't take very long explaining. Just checking the lights on the left and right sides of the room, and rather than covering yourself with a door whenever an animatronic is nearby, you have to cover yourself up with a mask. And that's essentially the same concept, although it's not quite the same because in the first game, when there was a creature behind the door, you had no idea how long they were going to be there. Whereas in this game, as soon as you put on the mask, you're incapable of taking it off until they leave, and it doesn't take very long for them to leave. And that is because of an entirely new mechanic for this game, the music box, which seems like just micromanagement, and it is, but the rest of the game is designed around the existence and management of this music box. These are not the only changes that have been made from the first game, and that will become more evident as time goes on, particularly because I will be spending a lot of time explaining it, just because it bothers me that people say, come on, there's a Five Nights at Freddy's 3 and you're going to buy it, why would you buy 3 copies of the same game? Because they might only have experience with one or none of the games, and just judge them based on having almost no first-hand experience with them whatsoever. And it's for this reason that I no longer judge people who play the Call of Duty series for just buying the same game over and over again, because how do I know that they're not all very different to them? I don't. They all look the same to me because that's not the kind of game that I play.
Hello? Hello?
Hello? Hello?
See, I told
Hello?
you your first night wouldn't be a problem. You're a natural. By now I'm sure
It wasn't really a problem for me the first time I played it either. I died once on the second night, and the first 3 I didn't have a problem with.
We just use them for parts now.
My first attempt at this.
To repair them. They even started retrofitting them with some of the newer technology, but they were just so ugly.
I don't know why they retrofit the old animatronics with new technology when they won't use them again.
Decided to just go in a whole new direction and make them super kid-friendly. Those older ones shouldn't be able to walk around, but if they do, the whole Freddy head trick should work on them too, so whatever.
It's a good thing we retrofitted them with new technology to do that.
Did you ever see Foxy the Pirate? Oh wait, Foxy. Oh yeah, Foxy. Hey listen, that one was always a bit twitchy.
Literally.
I'm not sure if the Freddy head trick will work on Foxy. If for some reason he activates during the night, and you see him standing at the far end of the hall, just flash your light at him from time to time. Those older models would always get disoriented with bright light. It would cause a system restart or something.
I guess that makes sense, because, you know, Freddy would always become active in the night because of the darkness or something.
That glitch might have carried over to the newer models too. One more thing, don't forget the music box. I'll be honest, I never liked that puppet thing. It's always thinking, and it can go anywhere. I don't think the Freddy mask will fool it, so just don't
I think the puppet is the character's official name, but everyone used to call it the marionette, which is kind of weird how that's not what it's called, because first of all, that's a cooler word, and secondly, I think it has strings on it, so maybe it should just be a Muppet. Just make all the characters Muppets. The setting of this game doesn't make as much sense to me as Five Nights at Freddy's 1, just because you have a flashlight that you can flash right in front of you, but it doesn't always reach the hallway for some reason. Just sometimes all you see is blackness, and it doesn't seem like there's any reason for that because light is still clearly being emitted from the flashlight. And you can also use the flashlight in the cameras somehow, like you have a trans-dimensional flashlight that can travel through the screen. Plus, there's the fact that you can press a button on your monitor that only shows up on a certain screen that winds up a music box that's about 5 rooms away from you. And just logically speaking, why wouldn't you have the Freddy mask on at all times, including whenever you're looking at the cameras? You can't use the mask has toxicity excuse, because that feature was taken out of the game. Maybe there's some futuristic technological explanation for why all of this is possible or not possible, but it's not really intuitive. Speaking of intuition, another thing that I think is different about this game, in the first Five Nights at Freddy's, even if you decided to mute the phone call right away and just have nothing explained to you whatsoever, you could probably still figure out all the mechanics of the game by yourself. In this game, you wouldn't have a clue to press control to use the flashlight unless the game told you to press control to use the flashlight. Which, by the way, I think it's strange that you have to use the keyboard at all, because I'm so used to having point-and-click games be solely point-and-click. Not that I guess it's a bad thing, it just feels a little bit off to me. And even if you did figure out the whole control to use the flashlight thing by yourself, then you would have absolutely no clue that you have to get rid of Foxy by flashing the light at him. And the concept of keeping monsters out of a room by closing the door is a much more immediately understandable concept than putting a mask on and then they just kind of bugger off. There are more aspects of this game that just require explanation. As we are already well aware, this game has new versions of the old animatronics, and it has the old animatronics. They're just kind of, they return from the dead, or whatever, and they're in a state of disrepair. New Bonnie, or Toy Bonnie, or Blue Bonnet, has a very clearly Robbie from Silent Hill inspired design in this game. Another thing that people tend to say is Five Nights at Freddy's 2 is just the first game, but it has more animatronics, and that's it. The existence of more animatronics is kind of a big deal, though. Because with the first game, when there were only 4 animatronics, you could have this direct relationship with each individual one of them. Bonnie behaved differently from Chica, Chica was different from Foxy, Foxy was different from Freddy. Each one of them was distinct. In this game, most of the animatronics are the same. In my mind, that makes this game have a lot less personality than the first. And I would say that 100% of the first game was about being aware of all of your surroundings at all times. In this game, being aware of your surroundings is 0% of the game. And that is why I say that this game is the complete opposite of the first, and again, this will be more obvious over time. In Five Nights at Freddy's 2, it doesn't matter who enters the room at all. You just keep doing the same things, and it always works. Once you get into the right rhythm, for the most part, I would say this game is easier than the first, which is different from the common consensus that I've seen on the internet, but that's how I feel about the game. By saying all this, I'm not trying to say that Scott Cawthon shouldn't have changed anything. The game was perfect the first time, and this one should have followed in its footsteps. I think that it's a very good idea for a sequel to not feel exactly the same as the original. I think only a good sequel would take some of the familiar aspects of one game and then build upon them, but also change them up a lot. I would say Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie, that's the perfect example of a two-part series where the second one is still especially good for reasons entirely different from the first. If I felt as though this game was the same as the first, I would not have a reason to play it. What is this? An interactive cutscene approaches, where you can look left or right. Hi, Chica. Where did your eyes go? You need to get that fixed. Sup, Bonnie? Old Bonnie, who for some reason has his head back. I think this goes on a little bit long. I would like to know why this mask looks different from the one that we wear during normal gameplay. It looks bigger, or it's just a close-up, I'm not sure.